Michigan State 37, Michigan 33. I know some of you out there, I have it on good authority at least, turned this game off when it was 30-14 Michigan. And whomst could blame you? It looked like it was over. Well, it wasn't. So this was college football at its absolute best. I was at this game. I will put it right up against Oklahoma, Texas, not only as the best game I've seen this year, I think those are both top 3, top 4 candidates for best college football games I've ever seen in person, period, just any given year. It was my first experience at Michigan State, certainly my first experience seeing this game played, and it was a pinch yourself kind of game. I have these a few times per season, and it's one of those games where if you grew up a college football fan like I did, and for a vast majority of your kind of adolescence / young adulthood, you never thought you'd be able to do this for a living, because that's where I was for a long time, but then you get to do it for a living. You have pinch yourself moments. You were not always just bequeathed this. This was not an inevitability. It wasn't always going to be the aisle with which you professionally walk down. And so yesterday was a pinch myself moment professionally, because you're standing there watching this, and you're surrounded by Michigan State fans and a smattering of Michigan fans, and it just means so much. Sometimes I don't think that bleeds through. No matter how good the broadcast is, you got to be there in person. Those of you who go to games know what I'm talking about, to fully get the magnitude of some of these games and why regular season games mean more to me than any kind of postseason game in college football. And then yesterday, so we're there, we're on the field, there's postgame. You're looking at it right now if you're on YouTube. It means so much. And the pinch myself moment, as Paul Bunyan's axe, the trophy right there in front of you is being hoisted by the Michigan State players, it's one of those situations of, how did I get here? Like, what business do I, of all people who grew up loving this sport, have on this field right now? I'm there in a professional capacity, but dude, I was a fan. Look at this. Look at me running around, screaming like a 19-year-old girl at a Van Halen concert. You can't hear that because I had our producers turn the audio down on this. But there he goes. Look at Paul, wearing the Spartan helmet, no less. Look at Paul. This was incredible. It was absolutely incredible. And look at the moment right now. The reason that I want to be on the field for these games is because I want to capture this kind of stuff. Look at the crowd, and you're just going to have to visualize it if you're listening on podcast. Look at those players. Not a single soul there is focused on playoff ranking right now. It's all about the moment. That's a moment. This is what college football is about. Moments. Moments on Saturdays in the fall. Not moments on a Monday night in some NFL stadium 1,000 miles away in January. That's all well and good. It'll get here in time. Those are the moments that a lot of us love this sport because of. They've played that game since 1898. It means a whole lot, and it meant a lot to me to be able to experience it yesterday, and I let everyone there who I could possibly let know. I got some more footage I'm going to show you in a little while that we watched after that game, but I want to get to the game first. You know what? Now that I think about it, no, I don't. I want to go to the ending first. So let's do this game in reverse. Yesterday, Michigan State beats Michigan, right? And it's Mel Tucker this and Mel Tucker that, but I want you, if you're watching on YouTube right now, to look at this. I was walking off the field and I saw Mark D'Antonio, former Michigan State head coach, guy who put a lot of this in motion. A lot of those players were recruited by Mark D'Antonio. And I saw him standing there alone. So I figured I'd just record it for you. Look at him. He's got the entire celebration in the background. He's in the foreground. And you got to wonder, if you think pictures are ever worth 1,000 words, I'd say that one's worth about 1,000,000 or 2 of what's going through his mind. He's standing there in silence. He's standing there all alone, and he's just watching those players. They have no clue he's even there, and it was great to see. And so I stood there, and I watched that for a little while, and then I went down the tunnel and kind of partook in a little of that team celebration myself. I didn't go in the locker room, though. That would have been unprofessional, and I'm nothing if not professional. So now let's talk about this game. One of the best things, I think, that happened yesterday that made this game one of the best that I've ever seen in person is how many ways it surprised you. And the first way it surprised you, I think, is not that it was close. If I were to have told you this thing's going to be 13-9, it's going to be a slop fest and a slug fest, you would have been able to buy that. I don't think a lot of you saw 37-33 coming. And I don't think a lot of you saw, Cade McNamara, for example, quarterback from Michigan, being able to have a career day through the air. He eclipsed, did Cade McNamara, his career high in passing yardage midway through the third quarter. And he lost the game. That's the team that lost the game. Michigan went over 500 total yards offense. They lost the game. I don't think many people saw that coming. I think defensive slugfest and it's just close because no one's capable of scoring. Maybe you could have seen that, but it surprised you, not that it was close, but in the manner in which it was close. And also, the amount of haymakers that were taken by both schools, by both programs, by both of these teams, and the ability to get up off the deck. 12-round fight, 15-round fight, depending on which era you grew up in. To use the boxing metaphor, they kept taking what should have been knockout blows, and they kept responding. Maybe they were down for 6 or 7, not down for the 10 count, and they got back up. I mean, there's a period here where Michigan State draws, I think, to within one possession, and it's 3rd and 8, and Michigan's right in front of that Michigan State student section, and it's 3rd down, and McNamara's got pressure in his face, and he drops one in the bucket, and it's a huge gain. I think Michigan ended up getting a field goal on that drive. And that alone, in a normal setting, you've taken their responding shot. That's when you built the early lead so you could take that and then answer. And it's so many different instances where you probably, if you're sitting at home, you said, that's ball game. I guarantee you there's someone out there watching that game yesterday who said the words, that's ball game, half a dozen times. In this one half, not even game, just this one half. The second thing, I think, that surprised a whole lot of people is the fact that a team built a 30-14 lead and lost. And that team was Michigan. And I know, because I had some of you texting me, I know some of you turned this game off. And I know, because I was talking to some of the assembled media there in attendance, that some gamers, which is the fancy industry term for post-game articles, some of the gamers had already started to be written, and the central theme was something along the lines of, Michigan proves they're for real. You know, Michigan not only beats Michigan State, but it's one of those contender-pretender moments, and all of a sudden you're going to have a bright white spotlight on Michigan, and they beat Michigan State by, just leave that blank, you'll fill it in once the game's over. And now we got to ask, can this team take down Ohio State? All that's going through people's minds. And then a funny thing happened. Michigan State started scoring, and they didn't stop. 23-3 is the run that they ended this game on to win it. My goodness. So Kenneth Walker, you know I'm not huge on the Heisman and all that stuff, but Kenneth Walker had himself a day yesterday. That's the running back for Michigan State. Let me give you a little number here. So he had 23 carries for 197 yards. But to give you an idea of what this game hinged on, which is exactly what we expected the other day if Michigan State were to win it, it hinged on explosive plays, not just through the air. It hinged on explosive plays offensively, period. And a lot of those this year have come via the ground game. We called them popcorn droppers. Well, that guy, Kenneth Walker, he ran for 197 yards. 126 of them came on 4 carries. 126 of his 197 came on 4 carries. Those are called popcorn droppers. If you want to call them Heisman moments, you can. That's for someone else to decide. They don't give me a vote on that thing, nor should they. Those were popcorn droppers. Those ended up being the difference in the game, and a vast majority of that happens in the second half, where everyone and their mother knows where it's going to come from, if it's going to come at all, for Michigan State, and it still happens. And it was incredible to watch. I've been in person a handful of times when that award, that Heisman Trophy at the end of the year, ends up being decided on the field. And I don't know if that's what we saw yesterday. I know I watched someone probably take the lead in that race, but it had that feel. You know, the Mark Ingram 2009 second half stretch SEC championship, Cam Newton doing it in 2010, the Johnny Manziel run, Lamar Jackson, like that kind of stuff, you could feel it. And that's what that felt like yesterday. Still a long way to go. A lot of these big-time players still have their big-time games to come. But this gutted Michigan. And I don't think anyone argues that, obviously. This gutted Michigan. I had to drive back to Detroit last night, which means you got to drive through Ann Arbor. And that was not the happiest of trips. Stopped at the gas station there in Ann Arbor. A lot of sullen faces. And understandably so. I'm not telling you should be happy with the outcome. But as someone who just sits off to the side and observes, I'm telling you, certainly I walked away with a higher opinion of Michigan State than I had when I came in there Friday night. But I'm saying the same thing about Michigan. Michigan did a lot of things I didn't think they were capable of. I didn't think Cade McNamara was capable of playing at that level. I really didn't. Now, they gave up some big plays, and defensively, I think they have a little soul searching to do. I also think a lot of what we saw and a lot of the busts and a lot of the, lack of being gap sound, some of the things I think that cost Michigan yesterday are correctable. I don't think it was just strictly terminal personnel issues. So, here's the challenge for Jim Harbaugh. They still got a lot to play for. Like Michigan State still has Purdue, Maryland, Ohio State, and Penn State coming up. They could lose 2 of those games. They could also go undefeated for all I know. What I'm saying is Michigan may end up controlling their destiny again. But the key is Jim Harbaugh's got to get his team back. James Franklin got his team back after they lost to Illinois. We're going to talk about that game in a second. You've got to get your team back. If they get them back, and I think they will, this is their first loss, then they've got Indiana this week. They go to Penn State. We're talking about Michigan. They go to Maryland, and then they've got Ohio State. I cannot remember what the Penn State number is, but it's a futures line right now. They should take care of Indiana this Saturday, especially since now we start to see a little evolution in Michigan's game. Because yesterday, even in defeat, you saw a lot more versatility offensively than you ever thought you'd be seeing when you saw the style of play through the first few weeks. Did you ever think that you were going to see Cade McNamara throw the ball like that? I'm not talking about just throwing a bunch of 50-50 balls way down the field. That throw he made for their first touchdown and several thereafter, those are big-time throws. Like, your top quarterbacks in America aren't throwing it better than that. You don't probably see it as much from McNamara as you would the top-level quarterbacks, but he had some of those moments, which showed you he's capable of it. So Michigan's still capable of a lot here. But, boy, Michigan State, I mean, that's what it's all about. I don't know where they're going to be ranked in the playoff committee Tuesday night. We're going to be on air right after that comes out, so obviously we'll have a lot to say about that. But they've got everything in front of them, and afterwards what was really fun was to watch Mel Tucker, because there's this thing that you can't ignore out there, obviously, the whole LSU dynamic. And I was talking to a lot of people around there yesterday, and they didn't deny that it's a reality. I mean, everyone has access to the internet. Everyone hears it. It's not like they're willingly blind to it. They're enjoying the moment right now. But here's what I kept thinking about. And we did some post-game coverage on CBS Sports HQ, and we were talking about this. If you are making the decisions at LSU and you like Mel Tucker, there's a big difference in Mel Tucker and the other guys you'll probably go after, in that Mel Tucker does not have a lengthy resume as a head coach. Mel Tucker has, about 2.5 seasons of head coaching experience under his belt. Well, that means you don't have a long-established track record, which also means every game is so significantly bigger on his resume than it would be a guy, let's say, like James Franklin, that has a number of years now, over a decade's worth of head coaching experience. And I'm saying that to tell you, if he is on your radar, imagine what yesterday meant. Because you don't have 1999 and then 2003, 2009. You just got 19, 20, 21. Like, that's what you have. So yesterday, for all we know, could have pushed some critical decision makers over the edge in favor of Mel Tucker. You know my thoughts on that. I'm not a big believer that that's how I'd love to handle a hiring process, but we also know I'm not in the room, first off, at LSU or USC or anywhere in between. And secondly, we do know it gets handled like that sometimes. So some things to think about in the midterm. In the short term, Michigan State is undefeated. Michigan State has every goal left in front of them. And Michigan State right now is a team that, like Michigan, has developed several more layers to their game that maybe you didn't think they were capable of when we entered the season, and it makes them dangerous. And I'll tell you what it also does. It also makes you look at Ohio State. Last night was one of the tests for the Buckeyes. They've still got to play Michigan State. They've still got to play Michigan. And then they get whoever they get in the Big Ten championship game if they make it there. It's not I know a lot of people out there think the Big Ten is this foregone conclusion, and, well, it's just an inevitability. It's not a matter of if, but when Ohio State wraps that thing up, it may be. I think they're the best team up there. I don't think they're unbeaten, or I don't think that they are, number one, without blemish. They've already got one, obviously. But number two, I don't think that they are immune to some of the things that we see happen every year in college football.